Have you ever stood in front of a mirror trying to look composed while something inside you quietly crumbles? You fix your collar, you straighten your back, you wear your best version of strength. But deep down, you're tired, not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of pretending you're okay, tired of carrying a weight that no one else seems to see. Perhaps it's not the loud chaos of life that breaks you. It's the silence after. The silence that follows criticism. The silence that follows rejection. The silence that follows betrayal. The moments where no one says anything, but inside, you feel everything. You might think the only way to survive this world is by becoming untouchable, unaffected, cold. That if you just push everything deep enough, you'll finally be free. But Stoicism doesn't teach avoidance. It teaches presence. It doesn't tell you to run from the storm. It asks you to walk into it, slowly, calmly, awake. The truth is, what hurts the most is not the event itself, it's what it activates inside you. Someone leaves, and suddenly you're not just abandoned today, you're abandoned all over again, like you were years ago. A comment stings, not because it's cruel, but because it echoes an old belief you still haven't healed from, that you're not good enough, that you're unlovable, that you don't matter. Epictetus would say, pain doesn't come from the thing, it comes from your judgment of the thing. But this isn't a call to blame yourself. This is an invitation to understand yourself. Because once you realize that your pain is not random, that it's rooted in something within you, you can stop fearing it. You can start listening. The Stoics were not emotionless. They felt deeply. But they mastered the art of not being ruled by those feelings. And that mastery came not from suppression, but from awareness, from seeing clearly, from facing what others avoid. So here's the paradox. You become untouchable not by hardening, but by softening. Not by pretending you don't care, but by understanding why you care so much. Because when you know your wounds, they stop being weapons in the hands of others. They become symbols of your strength, of what you've endured, of what you've integrated. This journey, the journey of becoming emotionally sovereign, does not begin with others changing. It begins with you choosing to stop blaming, to stop hiding, to stop running, and to finally look within. You think it's what they did to you that hurts. The betrayal, the silence, the words they chose so carelessly. But the truth is, that pain, the one that keeps you awake at night, it doesn't come from outside. It comes from a wound that was already there. A part of you that's still bleeding beneath the surface. What others say or do only has power if it finds something inside you to attach to. If a stranger insults you, it might bounce off. But if someone touches that one place, the one you've hidden even from yourself, it can tear you apart. Not because of their words, but because of the story those words awaken, a story you never resolved. Carl Jung understood this well. He taught that the external world merely reflects the parts of ourselves we haven't yet made peace with. That's why two people can go through the same experience and come out entirely different. One remains calm, the other breaks. It's not about what happens, it's about where it lands inside you. And the most painful truth of all, the one we try hardest to avoid, is this. The pain lingers because on some level, you're still trying to earn protection. You believe that if you're just good enough, kind enough, strong enough, you'll stop getting hurt. You try to please, to perfect, to predict, as if you could finally control how the world treats you. But that belief that you can control it all is the root of your suffering. Control is an illusion. The more you cling to it, the more fragile you become, like a glass trying not to shatter in a world full of stones. What you need is not more defense. What you need is awareness, because awareness brings choice, and choice brings freedom. When someone criticizes you and you feel crushed, you can pause and ask, what is this reaction really about? What wound is this touching? Is it truly about this person in front of me, or is it something I've never healed from my past? As long as your peace depends on others behaving a certain way, you will remain a prisoner. But the moment you realize that no one can control your inner world unless you hand them the key, everything begins to change. The battle is not out there. It's not in their words or their absence or their betrayal. The battle is within, and the only way to win it is to stop fighting the wrong war. You were taught to believe that life is what happens on the surface, that the important things are what people see, your achievements, your image, your performance. But the Stoics, like the depth psychologists, knew that what truly governs your life is what lies beneath, the unseen, the unspoken, the unconscious. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is exactly what happens to most of us. We think we're making choices, but in reality, we are reacting to pain we never addressed, to fears we never understood, to patterns we never questioned. Have you ever wondered why you lash out in anger over something trivial? Why you feel an emptiness even when everything seems fine? Why you sabotage yourself just when things start going well? It's not random. It's your unconscious trying to speak to you, not with words, but with symptoms. And you've spent years trying to silence those symptoms instead of listening to what they're saying. Ignored pain does not vanish. It becomes shadow. And the more you deny it, the more it finds dangerous ways to return, through anxiety, through broken relationships, through emotional shutdowns. You trip over the same emotional patterns again and again because you've only swept them under the rug. But the mind has no rug big enough to hide the soul. Jung called this shadow material. It is everything you reject in yourself, the shame, the fear, the anger, the neediness. And the more you reject it, the more power it gains over you. Because what you resist persists, and what you don't face controls you. The Stoics, too, understood this. They taught us not to fear emotions, but to examine them. Not to suppress desire or fear, but to understand what gives them their weight. That is why Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." So how do you begin to reclaim yourself? By turning toward the very things you've spent your life running from, by noticing when you're triggered and pausing instead of reacting, by asking gently, what am I really feeling right now? What am I believing about myself in this moment? And where did that belief begin? You cannot heal what you refuse to see, but the moment you turn inward, even if it's uncomfortable, you begin the process of individuation, the journey back to wholeness. And in that journey, you stop being a puppet to the world. You start becoming your own anchor, your own steady ground. This is the real meaning of strength, not to feel nothing, but to understand everything you feel and to no longer be afraid of it. Most people think that strength means building walls, that if they care less, feel less, express less, they will hurt less. So they shut down. They say things like, "I'm fine," when they're breaking. They laugh when they want to scream. They push people away, not because they don't need love, but because love feels dangerous when you've been hurt before. But this kind of armor doesn't protect you, it isolates you. And over time, it hardens you not into peace, but into numbness. You stop feeling joy, not just pain. You stop connecting, you stop trusting. You survive, but you don't live. The truth is, emotional armor makes you more vulnerable, not less. Because when you hide your wounds, they never get the chance to heal. And anything can rip them open again. A word, a look, a silence. Not because the world is cruel, but because you've never stopped the bleeding. To the Stoics, invincibility did not come from resistance. It came from clarity. Clarity about what belongs to you and what doesn't. Clarity about what is within your control and what is not. Clarity about what truly matters and what does not deserve your peace. And Carl Jung offered a deeper mirror. He called this process individuation, the slow, painful, sacred work of integrating everything you are, the light and the shadow, the strength and the fear, the love and the shame. It is not about becoming better, it is about becoming whole. When you start to integrate your shadow, the rejected parts of yourself, something powerful happens. You stop needing everyone to like you. You stop chasing validation. You stop reacting to every perceived insult because you know who you are. And what has been fully embraced within you can no longer be weaponized against you. People think that to be untouchable is to be cold. Stoicism teaches the opposite. To be untouchable is to be deeply rooted, to feel everything but not be controlled by anything, to move through life with quiet strength, not because you're avoiding pain, but because you've walked through it. And it no longer defines you. You become still, not from apathy, but from wisdom. You no longer fight every battle, not because you're afraid, but because you finally understand which battles are worth your soul. And most aren't. The path to becoming untouchable isn't about building defenses. It's about removing the false layers, the masks, the performance, the desperate need to prove anything to anyone. It's about coming home to yourself and finding, perhaps for the first time, that home is enough. From the time you were a child, you were taught to fear pain, not just physical pain, but emotional exposure. You learned that crying was weakness, that anger was dangerous, that needing others made you fragile. So you did what everyone does. You built walls, you hid your softness, you smiled when you were supposed to, you stayed silent when it hurt the most. But what no one told you is this: pain does not disappear when you ignore it. It waits, it shifts shape. It becomes anxiety, it becomes overthinking, it becomes a tightness in your chest that you can't explain, a numbness that won't go away, a tiredness that sleep cannot fix. Carl Jung saw suffering not as a failure, but as a call, a message from the soul. He said, depression is like a woman in black. If she turns up, don't shoo her away, invite her in, offer her a seat, treat her like a guest and listen to what she has to say. But most people don't listen. They stay busy. They distract themselves. They work, they scroll, they perform. They do everything except face what hurts. And yet that hurt becomes the silent architect of their lives, of the relationships they choose, of the chances they don't take, of the love they can't receive. The Stoics knew that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And suffering often comes from resistance, from trying to hold on to what is already gone, from refusing to let something in you die, even when that death is the beginning of your rebirth. Because growth feels like death. Letting go of old beliefs feels like betrayal. Walking away from people you once loved feels like failure. But it isn't. It's transformation. It's the shedding of a skin that no longer fits you. And yes, it hurts, but it also frees you. Every time you feel like breaking, something inside you is asking to be rebuilt. Every time you feel lost, a deeper part of you is trying to emerge. Suffering is the space between who you were and who you're meant to become. But you can only cross that space if you stop resisting. This is why most people never change. Not because they can't, but because they won't sit with their pain long enough to hear what it's teaching. They go back to what's familiar. They patch the cracks. They call it healing. But it's only when you let the structure collapse that something real can grow. So if you're in pain now, don't run. Don't numb it. Don't distract yourself. Sit with it. Ask it what it wants. Ask it what it's protecting. Because pain, when truly faced, becomes a portal, not a prison. And on the other side of that portal is not a new version of you. It is the real you, the one that was buried beneath everything you thought you had to be. It takes a rare kind of courage to walk through that portal, because everything you thought defined you, your roles, your achievements, your image, begins to fall away. And what's left can feel terrifying at first, a kind of emptiness, a silence. But if you sit with that silence long enough, you'll begin to hear something deeper, something true. This is the journey of individuation that Jung spoke of, the slow unveiling of your authentic self, not the one shaped by survival, but the one shaped by truth. It's not a path that offers comfort, it offers clarity. It demands that you unlearn the lies you've told yourself to be loved, to be safe, to be accepted. You may begin to see that the identity you clung to was never really yours, that the strength you performed was a mask, that the approval you chased was a substitute for self-respect. And in that moment, it feels like the ground beneath you disappears. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of something real. To individuate is not to become perfect. It is to become whole, to gather every fragmented piece of yourself, the noble and the flawed, the light and the shadow, and bring them home. It is the slow death of the ego, the one that says you must always win, always impress, always protect. And in that death, something else is born. Presence. When you've walked through fire, you stop fearing the flame. When you've met your shame, your rage, your loneliness, and sat with them without judgment, they no longer control you. You see them, you recognize them, and they lose their grip. That's what makes you untouchable. Not the absence of pain, but the intimacy you have with it. Not that nothing can hurt you, but that nothing can shake who you are anymore. Because you're no longer reacting, you're responding. You're no longer performing, you're living. People will still misunderstand you. They will still project their fears onto you, but you won't need to fight back. You won't need to defend, because you've already made peace with the parts of you they cannot see. And that peace is a quiet power no one can take. But there is a price. Depth comes with distance. As you grow inward, you may find yourself growing apart from people who still live on the surface, not out of pride, not out of judgment, but because you no longer fit in places that require you to hide. This distance is not loneliness, it's maturation, a natural result of knowing who you are and refusing to betray that truth to belong. And that is the final shedding, the release of your need to be understood by those who are not ready to understand themselves. You do not become untouchable by isolating yourself. You become untouchable by integrating yourself, by no longer living at war with who you are. There comes a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when everything shifts, not outside, but within. You stop trying to fix others. You stop trying to prove your worth. You stop chasing what you thought you needed to feel whole. And in that moment, something rare happens. You awaken. But awakening isn't dramatic. It's not fireworks or lightning bolts. It's subtle. It's the ability to sit with yourself fully, without distraction, without noise, without needing to escape. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." And this is the ultimate truth behind all healing. You have spent most of your life resisting your fear of being unseen, resisting your sadness, your fragility, your unmet needs. You wore strength like a costume, not knowing it was your own softness that would set you free. Because true strength is not hardness, it is clarity. The clarity to feel deeply without drowning. The clarity to stand alone without collapsing. The clarity to be misunderstood without shrinking. The clarity to walk away, not to punish, but to protect your peace. The Stoics called this ataraxia, inner stillness, a mind unshaken by chaos, a soul anchored not in control but in character. They never said life would be easy. They said your response to life is what defines your freedom. And here you are now, standing at the edge of that freedom. You're no longer fooled by the noise. You've seen how quickly the world applauds and abandons. You've felt the emptiness of performing. You've tasted the bitterness of becoming someone you're not just to be accepted. But you also know now, no one has the power to define your worth. No one's silence can erase your presence. No one's betrayal can break your essence. Because you've done the one thing most people never dare to do. You've looked within, and you didn't flinch. So here's what you must remember. You will still feel, you will still grieve, you will still be touched by the beauty and cruelty of the world. But it will no longer define you, because you've moved beyond reaction into reflection, beyond performance into presence, beyond survival into meaning. You are no longer building walls, you are becoming the ground. You do not need to be louder to be heard. You do not need to be harder to be respected. You do not need to be perfect to be free. You only need to be whole, and you already are.